Our opening speaker, General Chance Saltzman, is the Chief of Space Operations, CSO, for the United States Space Force. As CSO, he serves as the Senior Space Force Officer in the newest branch of the U.S. military and is responsible for the organization, training, and equipping of all organic and assigned U.S. Space Forces around the world. As a member of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, the CSO, along with the other service chiefs, serves as a military advisor to the Secretary of Defense, the National Security Council, and the President of the United States. A Kentucky native, General Saltzman is a graduate of Boston University and was commissioned into the Air Force in 1991 through the Reserve Officer Training Corps program. Since that time, he has served in a variety of positions as increasing responsibility in the U.S. Air Force, commanding at the squadron, group, and wing level. In 2020, he transferred to the Space Force as the first ever Deputy Chief of Space Operations for operations, cyber, and nuclear. Today, as CSO, General Saltzman is committed to ensuring Guardians have the tools they need to serve in the world's preeminent Space Force, securing our nation's interest in, from, and to space. Ladies and gentlemen, let us once again please welcome the Chief of Space Operations, U.S. Space Force, General Chance Saltzman.
Good morning, Legionnaires. This is what a Space Force uniform looks like. So it occurs to me that maybe not many of you have met a real live Space Force Guardian. We're a little like icebergs. You've heard rumors and tales, but no one's actually seen one alive. I get it. This is real, I promise. Let me just say, it's really tough to follow both the students we saw earlier and these tremendous Americans serving in our forces today for their service and volunteerism. It's tough to stand up here and give a speech after that, because I don't know if I can top it. But I just want to say congratulations to all those winners and well done to everyone. I so appreciate the opportunity to spend some time with you today. You've all shown an extraordinary commitment to serving our nation, and I thank you for it. Daniel, thank you for those kind words and for inviting me to be here at this very special event. I'm honored to share the stage with the Medal of Honor recipient, Specialist 4th Class Michael John Fitzmaurice. Mike, thank you for being here, and as always, thank you for your exceptional service to our country. Thanks as well to the entire American Legion leadership, membership, for making this opportunity possible and helping us celebrate these extraordinary members of our service community. On a grand scale, the American Legion has shown itself to be a leader in advocating for our nation's military veterans. You also play a vital role in welcoming and transitioning service members back to civilian life, and I can't thank you enough for those efforts. And in particular, I cannot overemphasize the value of the American Legion's role as a veteran service organization in support of the U.S. military, particularly during the recruiting crisis that has faced some of our branches. Mind you, this is not a problem for the Space Force right now. Our numbers are pretty good, but again, we only turned 5 this December. So we are still growing, still developing, still adapting to what it means to be a military service. And I'm pleased to say that despite some growing pains, our members, our Guardians, are rightfully proud of their role in protecting our country and its way of life. They are proud to be answering our nation's call to duty. Speaking for myself, I got to agree. There is a special honor in dedicating your time and energy to defending the Constitution of the United States. Thank you. To me, it offers a unique sense of purpose that far exceeds any individual's self-interest. So I'm particularly honored to be here today representing our nation's Guardians, who are proud to serve not only as the guardians of U.S. interest in space, but also to serve as guardians of our nation's trust. Today's Guardians are part of a legacy of service that traces all the way back to the United States founding. There is no question that our country, more than most, was founded on a commitment to service. Let me give you an example. Less than a week after famously crossing the Delaware during his successful surprise attack at Trenton, General George Washington and a ragtag army faced an existential crisis. It was December 31st, 1776, with a bitter cold weather and up to 6 inches of fresh snow on the ground. And Washington knew he might lose much of his army, not to the enemy, but to a more insidious foe, a crisis of service. That's because the enlistments of many of his soldiers would expire the next day, January 1st. Most of the men were anxious to go home after a long, cold winter on the run. But if they left, Washington would lack the manpower to follow up on his unexpected victory at Trenton and continue the fight for freedom. Lining up his cold and tired command, he stood in a frigid, blustery wind and made a personal appeal to his bedraggled troops. He said, "My brave fellows, you have done all I asked you to do and more than can be reasonably expected, but your country is at stake. You have worn yourselves out with fatigues and hardships, but we know not how to spare you. If you will consent to stay 1 month longer, you will render that service to the cause of liberty and to your country, which you probably can never do under any other circumstance." General Washington's urgent and persuasive call to service had the desired effect. About half the men agreed to stay on, making possible yet another critical victory just 3 days later at Princeton. The American Revolution would live to fight another day, and the rest, as they say, is history, something we can now finally call American history. And Washington's words, "Render that service to the cause of liberty," remain as potent a rallying cry for service today as they were 248 years ago. And yet, in recent years, we have all seen a decline in the propensity to serve. And there are many reasons for that, some of them completely out of our control: economics, demographics, generational differences. But others we do have some control over, like the perception of public service, the belief in nonpartisan, merit-based service, and the promotion of democratic values. These are all part of what Washington called service to the cause of liberty. And I think we have an obligation as Americans to highlight them, to remind others why we serve, and to hold ourselves to the highest standards of public service. To give a better sense of what I mean, let me start by offering my own personal experience. First, let me say it's been the honor of my life to serve my country. Yet, it is important to recognize that the things that get someone to stay in service aren't necessarily the reasons they choose to stay. We have to think about this continuum of service. And to that end, we must continue to tell the stories of why each and every one of us decided to serve. And I'll be honest, my entering the Air Force back then was pretty transactional. They said ROTC would pay for college. They said there's a job waiting on the other end. And so just like that, I became a member of the United States Air Force. But that's not why you stay for the second tour, because all of a sudden there's relationships you value. There's people you respect. And so you take the next job and the next job. And before you know it, you realize you've developed this sense of purpose, hard to describe, but impossible to ignore. Because you go home on leave, you watch your friends from high school and the jobs they have, where they're making good money, often more than you do, but they don't have this sense of calling, the sense of duty. As I realized my friends and family actually respected what I was doing, I started to become more aware of this feeling, and I had this sense of purpose. So I stayed on. And then before you know it, in the blink of an eye, you're the old guy on base. The person people are looking up to, the person they are relying on, the person they respect. Now you have this desire, this burning desire to give back to the institution that's given you so much. And you have a much better understanding of the real value of public service. For me, public service has been an amazing journey because of the people that are in it with me. I've learned that the people that do it for that long do it for incredibly, unbelievably heartfelt reasons. It's not about chasing a job, it's a calling, not just a profession, but the profession of service. Service to the cause of liberty, as Washington said. And over the course of my career, I've become more reflective about the meaning and value of service to our nation. One cannot think about the selfless nature of our veterans without feeling a sense of pride. I'm proud to be affiliated with people who had the character to step up, serve a cause bigger than themselves, to sacrifice, to suffer the hardships of military life. And now I feel an incredible amount of pressure to give back to the people and organizations that have given me so much, a pressure that I gladly welcome. I want to honor those that came before me. I want to hold up their tradition of service and character. And I want to honor those that I currently serve by getting them the resources, the tools, the training, the experiences they need to be the best they can be. I want all of us to prove worthy of all the special trust and confidence that the Americans place in us to protect the nation. And I want to inspire those that might come next, those young men and women that are trying to decide what to do with their lives. I want them to consider pursuing a life of service to our great nation. I want them to understand that the incredible value that each individual can bring to this noble pursuit. And that's why if we can all keep telling those stories, they're going to inspire the next generation. And that means people are going to follow in your footsteps. So step wisely, step proudly. People are watching. Along those lines, earlier this month, Secretary of Defense Austin released a message about service to our nation. He invited military professionals across the Department of Defense to answer the following question: why do you serve? He encouraged all service members, DoD civilians, senior leaders, to respond with their own answer to that question. In his message, he noted that since day one as being Secretary of Defense, he has been guided by three principles: defending the nation, taking care of the people, and succeeding through teamwork. The Department of Defense has worked hard to grow our talent, build resiliency and readiness, and ensure accountable leadership. We have the best fighting force in history because of our people. Our men and women in uniform and our DoD civilian workforce embody the dynamic diversity of the nation. We remain committed to taking care of our outstanding troops and their families. And so we need to continue to talk about the fact that military service offers incredible opportunities, generous benefits for those that serve, both tangible and otherwise. And while I have the stage, I hope you'll indulge me if I talk a little bit about the Space Force in particular. We are the new kids on the block, so to speak, and we're tasked with protecting and defending a domain that previously we took for granted, the space domain. And because we are such a new military service, it occurs to me that most of you might not have had the opportunity to interact with members of our service or even think about its purpose. The fact is, space has become critical to all of us, whether or not you're aware of it. For example, the Space Force operates the GPS system, the satellites that give us precise location information, and the ability to navigate with our smartphones. That's the obvious part. What you might not know is that those same satellites also give us an extremely accurate timing signal that enables global banking, digital transactions like ATMs, stock trades, and those purchases my wife loves so much from Amazon. Those signals are the linchpin that keeps our computers synchronized anywhere in the world. And that's not all, of course. Satellites give us data to make weather predictions, find and chart forest fires, support disaster relief. They transmit television, radio signals. They enable every aspect of modern life, from agriculture to the internet. But unless you know how all of that works, the space domain can be all too invisible, out of sight, out of mind. For the military, it goes even further than that. Remember that in World War II, we used carpet bombing, which was costly both in terms of dollars and collateral damage. Thanks to space power, though, we've been able to advance to more effective, more localized efforts. Smart bombs are smart because of the Space Force's signal. In the same vein, satellite communications allow our forces to remain in close contact despite being spread around the globe every day, securing peace. And the unblinking eye of our surveillance and reconnaissance satellites helps us find, attribute, and warn against warlike behaviors, such as North Korean missile launches. So it's no exaggeration to say that America's prosperity and the national security depend in no small part upon the effects from space. As a result, I hope it's clear that space must be protected from disruption, whether natural or from our adversaries. But as Bob Dylan likes to remind us, the times they are a-changin'. Today's space domain is far different from the one I learned to fly satellites in when I started my career. The domain is now more congested, more contested than at any other point in our history. Like the Army for the land, the Navy for the sea, the Air Force for the air, the U.S. has always purpose-built military services focused on securing our interests in each of the domains. And now we have critical interests in space, and other nations are trying to take it from us. So the Space Force was stood up to defeat threats and protect our capabilities in space. In 2011, the Department of Defense tracked about 1,000 active satellites and approximately 17,000 man-made objects in space. Man-made objects in space like defunct satellites, discarded rockets from launches, debris generated by collisions, breakups, things like that. By the time the Space Force was established in 2019, we were tracking over 2,000 active satellites and over 25,000 objects. And as the Space Force approaches its 5th birthday this coming December, we are tracking over 9,000 active satellites and almost 45,000 objects in space in just over a decade, from 1,000 satellites to 9,000 satellites. Let me emphasize this point in a different way. In 2022 and 2023, the world launched more satellites into orbit than in all previous years combined. That's over 65 years of launches. Most of that stuff is now in low Earth orbit, about 300 miles above us, and moving at about 18,000 miles an hour. And all of those objects, 45,000 of them, create congestion that we are constantly monitoring so as to predict and hopefully avoid collisions, ensuring the safety of the astronauts on the International Space Station. Just a couple of weeks ago, a Chinese rocket body on orbit blew up and created an untold number of new and dangerous debris objects. But space is not just congested, it's also contested. It has become a true warfighting domain. The Russians and the Chinese have worked overtime here. Both have invested heavily across the board with a portfolio of space weapons. Both have anti-satellite missiles. Both have proven the ability and willingness to destroy satellites on orbit. Collectively, the state of play has become serious enough, the threats bad enough, and our dependency on space strong enough that it became a national imperative to ensure our place as the world's preeminent space power remained. And from that imperative, the Space Force was born. The takeaway is this: everywhere the Space Force operates, there are threats. And these threats can attack any of our satellites in a variety of dangerous ways. Our nation's Space Service is charged with preventing these deadly capabilities from hurting our forces, as well as supporting the Joint Force in every aspect of its operations. And it's the guardians of your United States Space Force that wake up every day committed to serving our nation and securing our interests in space. But this is no different than the call to arms that so many others have answered. Our veterans from every military branch have answered Washington's call to duty and sworn the oath to support and defend the Constitution of the United States. The reasons that Americans take up this call very widely: an opportunity for education, a chance to start a new path, a family legacy. But once answered, the call forms bonds that all of us share. Throughout history, our veterans have given their all. They have accomplished the impossible time and time again. They have routinely done more with less. And in the words of Winston Churchill, never have so many owed so much to so few. And regardless of the branch we call our own, I hope we can all help the youth of our country think about serving. I want us, the elder statesmen, if you will, to talk about serving. And I want all citizens to value and honor those who have served in any capacity. I truly believe that increasing interest in service will benefit young people by helping to instill character, selflessness, discipline, and a sense of duty. And the United States will be far better for it. Who amongst us doesn't want that kind of person in our workforce, on our team, in our neighborhood? So let me close by saying that today and every day, I hope you will continue to help me honor all of our nation's veterans, including our guardians, by living up to their example, by showing our fellow Americans the value of putting service before self, of caring for each other as we work to build a more perfect union, whether that work is here on Earth or amidst the boundless frontier of space. I am personally proud to be a member of the American military, the finest in the world, and all-volunteer force. And this means we rely on Americans who are proud of their commitment to serve, who take an oath to defend our Constitution and country, and who want to be a part of something bigger than themselves. People who are unafraid to render that service to the cause of liberty, as General George Washington reminded us almost 250 years ago this winter. Thank you again for inviting me. Thank you for all you do for us. Congratulations to our winners. And as we say in the Space Force, Semper Supra. Thank you.
And General, I do have a few gifts for you as well. I take that back. I don't have any gifts. I forgot. Somebody just left them here. So anyway, some mementos.
Thanks, sir. Very cool. They just keep coming.
But I'm going to do this. This you can display. Again, be proud of the family. And like you talked about, the family. And what you do and what we all do, changing lives and saving lives. We need each other, don't we?
Yes, sir.
It's an honor.